So I am from Greenhouse Software. I run the sales development team there. And joining me today on the panel are Nick Kreisman, and he is the VP of Performance Marketing here at Namely. And you'll learn more about what he does and who he is. And then you have Tony Granados, who is the Director of Global Effectiveness and Strategy at Percolate. So we'll go ahead and kick it off. Good deal. And we will have time for questions at the end. I usually say this, but just think of your questions, and if they're relevant for everyone, I definitely want to hear them. If they're relevant for just you, come up and talk to us afterwards. Cool?
And please tweet.
And tweet. Yeah, it's the Sales Dev Forum hashtag, if you'd like.
But just edit them and make me sound a little smarter, you know.
Awesome. All right. So, first of all, I like to poll the group just to figure out, I think I kind of have a good idea of who's who here. Who is a sales development leader or running a team of some sort? Okay, good. It's about a third of you guys. I like it. And then all you SDR salespeople, raise your hands. Yeah, awesome. That means I targeted the right group of people because this is mostly for you and helping your managers figure out how to make this your job and life even better. Awesome. Cool. So let's go ahead and give you guys a chance to give some intros. So quick 45 seconds, who you are, what you do here, or Percolate. Yeah?
Sure. That's a lot. That's a lot to go through in 45 seconds. I'll do it quick. I was a computer science guy undergrad who started out in development at Amazon, but got a little bored over in the corner. I moved into consulting. I didn't like that either. I eventually wove my way into tech startups, and I was didn't really know where I would fall, but I didn't want to develop, so I got on the business side and ended up in marketing here at Namely. Joined Namely about 2 years ago now. Originally it was just a marketing team of 2, and the sales development team was separate under sales. As we sort of grew marketing over the course of 2015, got a lot more inbound demand flowing, we ultimately realized that we needed to bring together inbound and outbound to drive one qualified opportunity goal for the company, and that marketing cared the most about that. So sales development rolled under marketing in 2016. And I've been working together with Chris Flores, the manager there, to figure it out since. And I'm pretty excited about this because I think really early on moving into it, we realized that there's sort of a promise here, which is that we're looking for smart, hungry people who want to learn. And the promise we have to make back is that when they put in the blood, sweat, and tears to progress, that we're going to help them get where they want to go in their careers. And I think that that's probably the number one thing that we're trying to do successfully here at Namely. From a sales development standpoint. Now, when I met up with these guys last night to share best practices, I was hoping they'd have a ton to learn, but we found out that this is a really hard topic. There aren't a lot of easy answers on this one, but there are some things I think we could share that would be useful.
Cool. So my name is Tony Granados. I'm Director of Sales Effectiveness and Strategy at Percolate. Essentially what that really means, I do a lot of things, wear a lot of hats, but it's my aim to make sure that everybody in the organization, from BDR, or SDR, we call them BDRs, so from SDR all the way up to SVP, to make sure that they can keep pace with the speed we roll at from the sales organization. My journey is pretty interesting. Yes, I've done the SDR job at my company, so I can empathize with the reality of what we're doing, right? What our task is. I've worked and made it my personal mission with our team to really take on the mantle of being sure to develop the careers. And what I hope to give to you guys today is talk to you a little about my strategy, my goals, but also share what are the challenges I see and help you guys better navigate them to really develop your career. Because there's a team effort in building up SDRs. It's the entry point for any good organization. And I put any of our BDRs at Percolate up against any other entry-level position in our company, and I'm certain they'll run circles around people. So really excited to answer questions later, but also kind of shed some light into the way we see the world, but then also share some best practices and also some, some trapdoors traps that we found that you guys can avoid. So really happy to be here.
Awesome. Great. So Tony, I do want to kick it back to you really quickly.
Yeah.
Just a little bit more about your story of being an SDR and then how you got to where you are, because it hasn't been a whole lot of time.
No, it's pretty cool. So I'm one of those people who had a career change, later in life, right? So I came in, I was in the BDR role. Like many of you, I was promised I'd be in the role for 4 months, right? And obviously, I'm seeing some laughs. We'll talk about that later. I was promised for 4 months, and it took me about 6, and that's because I worked really, really hard to get around a bunch of roadblocks. So I was in the BDR role, SDR role for 6 months, and then I was tapped to become a mid-market seller, one of the first to actually build out that team, which is really exciting when you hear about that now, but maybe some of you guys have experienced it where in my organization, the step after BDR was enterprise seller. So this new roadblock showed up that was in my way, which was a new position, being a mid-market seller, which I was half really excited about and half kind of down about, but I worked my way through it. And I did about the mid-market role for about 6 months and then pivoted again and created a position for myself at Percolate, which is really awesome. I launched our sales effectiveness discipline, which, as I said earlier, is all about making sure that we're removing roadblocks from our sellers and making sure that they're getting the most out of their day, right? Whether that's helping people onboard, whether that's helping people ramp, or changing our entire go-to-market strategy with our SVP of sales and our head of marketing. I get to do all of these things, and it's really the best job I've ever had. It's awesome.
So I know people are like 6 months, that's still really fast. Because I bet I can think about that still super fast. So we're gonna get to that and like how things have changed probably since then, which was about 2 or 3 years ago. So hold that thought. I know that is a thought of all of you SDRs in the room. Okay, so let's start from the top and think about, and we'll keep it brief on what do you guys look for when you're hiring an SDR, the qualities that you look for when you're hiring, and then at the end of the process, whenever that process ends, what do you expect them to know, and what are the qualities then that the directors should be looking for to hire them out of your program? So it's a 2-part question. Yeah, Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So we've done a lot of I've heard a number of different answers on this. I've heard people talk about being financially motivated. I've heard people talk about a natural salesmanship and it factor. I've heard a lot of angles. We boil it down to smart, hungry, and eager to learn. Because I think that the person who takes the job that we at least want here at Namely is the one that is looking at this as a first step in a broader career, and is going to come in the door and approach it that way. And that means that they're going to be continually pushing themselves without us having to go to them to get better every day, to absorb all the skills they can, and to push themselves on to the next step, not wait to be kind of pulled on because they've hit some sort of a time period. So that's what we look for. I think our onboarding process is pretty typical. We do sort of a 2-week boot camp, then we do a lot of batting cages, a lot of sort of shadowing amongst the teams to build a discipline. Where I think things have really evolved is that beyond that is that in the past, when we were a younger company, there was really one thing that we could do, which was you could hope that somebody became an AE. And the timeline and the process and the discipline around that could vary. You never knew when it was going to happen, if you were in line for it. Performance was sometimes taken into account. What we've worked pretty hard to do is to put in some set of criteria that define your performance, your qualitative skill set, how effectively you're selling, and your contribution to the team culture and environment, and how that progresses from an SDR 1 to a 2 to a senior, and then to a variety of other roles in the organization. And actually that's sort of our current state and our current challenge is building out these broad set of paths. And that's been a fun process, but a hard process. And what it sort of entails from a leadership perspective is we go around and we talk to the managers of these other departments, and we understand what roles they have, what skills they require, and what criteria they hire against. And then what we need to do then is come back, and at the right point, as people have earned the right by progressing from SDR 1 to 2, to start having those discussions, to understand the roles, their level of interest, and how they develop the skills to position themselves as the best person when that role opens up. And I think that there's a lot more challenging there about aligning timelines with the business, on making sure that somebody is truly ready and the right. It's not just going to get the promotion, but be successful in the promotion. There's a lot there that we're working through, but I'll hand it over to you, Tony, to hear your side.
And Tony, before you hop in, I was going to add just one little piece of that. So I know that Nick is doing a lot of the legwork, right, in building those relationships. I think the biggest thing, and I know Tony would say this too, is, and it's just, we all sound like a broken record when we say this, is internally network. Do not stop, right? Like, if you want to be in this role, I can go talk to the leader of that department and say all day, no, this person's awesome, and I can sell them and tell them about why they should hire you. But if you have a relationship with them and you're building value and interest in the job that they do from the very beginning, when they want to hire someone, who are they thinking about? Oh my gosh, there's this young, hungry person who's been dying to work more closely with me. And then they're going to open up the position for me, right, as a leader. So think about that, like, and that's something that it's easy to get caught in the day-to-day of your job. You know, you have these numbers that hit, you have so much to do, but the more you can think about other departments and other people that would help not only propel you in your career, but in the job that you're currently in, you're going to be better off. So, Tony, can
Cool. Yeah, no, I'm just going to jump on the initial part of what we look for, and I think we do 3 pretty cool things when we recruit over at Percolate. The first thing is we involve our most experienced and tenured SDRs or BDRs in the process. So it's myself in my role, the director, and the managers who are going to be leading, and then we have 1 or 2 of our most senior SDRs take the meeting. And what we ask of that senior SDR is to honestly give us an assessment at the end of the interview whether they think that person is going to be better than them. Okay, so that's what we hold up, because essentially this person is going to be taking a portion of your inbound leads. They're going to be taking a portion of the AEs that you would otherwise be working with. So I have some SDRs here in the room, and they know this, or maybe they don't, maybe it's the first time they're hearing this, but your colleagues thought that you could be better than them. And as long as we understand that, it really raises the bar that we're constantly moving in the proper direction. So that's one. The second thing is my role that I play in the interview process. It's really 2 things. It's to help them understand what our career path looks like. During the interview, I lay it out. I explain exactly what they can expect in their first year. I also am very clear to demystify this one piece. So if any of you guys are involved in hiring, I apologize for setting this trap. But I make it very clear that if any person hiring for the BDR role, if they're telling you you're going to be in and out of the role in less than a year, be hesitant, right? Because really it takes over a year to be successful at this role. I think I kind of snuck out the side door and really made best of opportunities, and we'll talk about how you guys can do that as well. But really the role takes between 12 and 18 months to be really good, and it's about 16 months when you're at your peak. These are just numbers, these are stats that aren't Percolate stats, these are across the board. So I explained the career, I set the expectations right up front. And then the final thing I do, because if you're in a BDR, we face rejection a lot and objection handling a lot, I take the job offer away from them, and I say, well, why would you even, knowing what you know about our role, why would you even want this? I don't think you're a good fit. And if the person can't explain why they're a good fit and why they should overcome and why I should consider them, they're certainly not going to be able to do it with clients, right? If they can't sell themselves, there's no way in hell they're going to sell a meeting for your company. So this is the way that I think about it. These are the 3 unique things where I take it away, I make sure they understand what their career path is, and I use peers to actually lead. So that's it on the front end. I think we do pretty well. That are really good take-homes for everybody.
Thanks.
I'll say one thing.
Yeah.
One thing we've started to do differently on the hiring front, which your senior SDR piece made me think of, is we've started to involve the sales managers on the account exec side in every SDR that's hired, and we ask them to evaluate, is this somebody who over a 12 to 18 month period you can envision on your team? And if the answer is no, then we just don't move forward, because whether it's sales or whether it's somewhere else, we need people that they believe are going to grow and that they're bought into the development of. And that's something we've changed, which I think is a powerful, sets a powerful precedent, that we're not hiring this just for our team, we're hiring it for the organization broadly.
All right. Yeah, the stat of like 12 to 18 months. So Trish Bertuzzi, has written the sales development playbook, and if you haven't read it, it's a great book to read, and it's my messiest book. It's just covered in notes. And she says it's 13 months, 13 and 14 months in the job. You are at your prime. Like you are the best you will ever be at a sales development job. So, and to get there, there are a lot of different things you have to do on the way. It's not just about prospecting and putting in the dials, right? It's the full picture. Are you actually coming to things like these, right? And learning from peers and learning about different ways to think about things? Are you keeping the focus in the right direction? Are you working the right amount of accounts? I mean, there's so many different aspects that get put into that. And the biggest thing in my mind is come next year, really come in every day and focus. I think that's a huge thing that I see with my team. When I see that their head is on straight in any given day and they come in with that just like look that they're gonna get shit done, they have a phenomenal day. So that's my biggest thing that I also kind of look for. Do they have that grit, that sheer intelligence and horsepower? That's kind of the get you done kind of piece that makes a huge difference. So I'll send that in. So let's talk a little bit more, let's get into the ladders, right? So let's talk about onboarding. Are there any checkpoints that they have to get through in onboarding? And then what does that look like at each level? Tony, do you want to start off this one?
Yeah, I'll talk about the onboarding, and then I'll pass it over to you. So the other part of my job is I run all the onboarding for our company, right? So like I said, I wear a lot of hats. So anybody, whether you're a BDR or whether you're our SVP of sales, nobody can touch you for the first 2 weeks of your career in my company, right? They can't be pulled out for meetings, nothing. They have to go through the program. Now the BDR program has changed, where now it's 1 week intensive, but you're gonna have from 9 till 6 every day for the first week with us. And we run you through a boot camp. Love HR, I'm not HR, right? My job is to treat you like a seller and get you up to the level where you could actually pitch the product and not fall on your face. So we do that for everybody in the organization. During the onboarding, I think, which is pretty neat, is we do have gates during onboarding. They can be evaluations. A lot of the times what our BDRs don't know is in the background, I'm checking in with their managers every other day. At the end of the 1 week training, I'm trusted by our team to invite somebody to leave, okay? So think of it as a 1 week interview process. And I make that clear to many of our BDRs up front, right? Because really, we're not training them for BDRs, we're training them to be impactful sellers at Percolate, whether that's as a mid-market seller, whether that's as an enterprise, or whether that's in marketing, alliances team, any of the other avenues within our company. So our onboarding focuses on 4 things. It focuses on the vision, value, and culture of our company. That's critical to everything we do. We focus on the marketplace in the sense of understanding the pains of a marketer, because we sell marketing technology, We focus on the process, which is really important for somebody who's in the BDR role, right? How do you get stuff done? And then the value prop of the tool. We also have learned from experience that you don't need to actually teach everything in depth to the BDR. At some point, product knowledge becomes a hindrance to actually doing your job. And that's really a pain in the butt, because I think as a BDR, the only thing I crave is, like, I figured if I trained harder and learned more, I'd advance my career faster. But in reality, there's this somewhat of a dummy curve, right? Where if you know just a little bit, you're gonna ask smart questions, you're gonna know your sound bites and deliver them. If you know a whole lot, your effectiveness kind of comes down because you're really trying to do the job of the AE and sell the product. And the idea is we're not selling products in the BDR role, at least in our organization, we're selling meetings, right? We're trying to sell qualified meetings out to the team. And it's hard because, like I said, as a BDR, you really want to gather all this information. So we've adjusted and tempered the way that we actually do the training to give less to the BDRs so they can actually do more, which is kind of counterintuitive. And a lot of this game, as you guys have figured out, doesn't make sense the first time. But that's one we learned the hard way.
That's a really, really good point. I think the more product you know, I mean, it's good, right? But then you have to figure out what's your own filter. Yeah. How are you going to filter that so you're not saying every single thing and word vomiting for the AE then to say, oh, you already learned all of this? Interesting. Now you don't have to do discovery anymore. Awesome. So Nick, you want to take it? And then, so in terms of a certification, I can speak to just the end of the onboarding. So we do a certification process at the very end of onboarding. And so we expect the SDR before we say, yep, you can hop on the phone, you can start really prospecting accounts and getting your hands dirty. A certification call checks that box. So it's, can you take a call with a a fake prospect, which is one of us, and we're a recruiter because we sell recruiting software. And they go through that process, and if you pass sign off and you pass that certification call, you take all the information that you learn from that certification call and then you create a presentation to help understand how then, and that would be more like an AE would do as the beginning of a demo, of what's the value that we're gonna bring, what are your challenges, what are the things that you guys really care about and wanna understand better, and how can we relate that to Greenhouse and who we are in the marketplace. So that's a little two-step process that we do at Greenhouse to help sign people off, and it's a nice check and balance, right? You feel like you've accomplished something and you feel really a lot more ready, I think, to hop on the phone. So take it from there. After onboarding, what do those ladders look like?
Yeah, sure. I'll lay ours out. I'll also talk about some of the challenges we've had with implementing it. We can get into it. So after onboarding, the goal is to ramp in 3 months. In your 4th month, be at quota. From there, what we're looking for is that before you get into bigger, broader career discussions, you get really good at driving to quota and understanding our buyer, our market, and our product. So we look for those things, and we look for somebody to hit quota consistently in 3 months in a row or 4 months out of 5 to move from SDR1 up to SDR2. From SDR2, that's when we're going to say continue to do the SDR job really, really well. And now if you're able, take it to the next level and start contributing team-wide, start helping with mentorship and onboarding, and start showing that your skill set can scale and that you're ready to go meet other leaders in the organization, take informational interviews and start learning about those roles and building those skills on top of doing the day job really, really well. And from SDR2, that's when things are I would say, we have again another checkpoint of getting to a senior SDR where we make mentorship more formal and add a couple more some more responsibilities on. We can define the timeline from SDR2 to senior SDR. That we look at as similarly 4 to 6 months, 4 months of hitting quota consistently, or 5 out of 6 to move up to senior. The hard part, and one of the things we learned, is that the timelines to move outside of the SDR role, they're just not so rote. We all wish they were. It would be the greatest thing if we could guarantee that people who work hard and do their jobs at a pretty good level can definitely have this other role at this definite timeline. The reality is the way this works is you've got the business and the organizational needs to consider, driven by your board of directors, your financial plan, the timing and trends and trajectory of your business, and what it's going to take to meet it. Then you've got to make sure that the SDR has developed and become the best person to take that job out of, not just in the building, but out of anybody internally or externally. Because if an account executive manager hires an SDR that can't do the job over somebody externally that can do the job, you're doing two things. First, the company's going to fail. Second, the future SDRs are going to have no chance of progression. And I think, so that you have to be the best person for the job, and you have to really be excelling in the SDR role and showing that you have the hunger that, given the chance, you're certainly going to perform and do it the best. And those timelines just can't be as concrete and as perfect as anyone would like. And that's a really hard thing that we've learned, is that first, we need to start these discussions and branch them out from just being an AE to other areas. We need to start those at the SDR2 level. One of our first mistakes was starting it too late. One of our second mistakes was assuming that just by being in the role and doing a reasonable job, that you could have definite timeline expectations written down and have people bank on them. What we need to do as leaders is try to, when people are exhibiting that trajectory, do everything in our power to make it happen, but we can't change some elements of the trajectory of the company. And then ultimately, a part that falls somewhat on the SDR and somewhat on a manager of the other department is that if you're the AE manager, you have to imagine the scenario where you're waiting on that individual. It's the 31st of the month, you're behind quota, you've got a CFO of a 500-person individual getting ready to sign a 6-figure deal, and you have to trust that that SDR is going to be the one to get it over the line, because if they don't, they can't do their job, and you can't do your job, and neither of you is going to last long. And that's something that confidence is what you need to instill in the hiring manager of the next role, and that just doesn't adhere to a perfect timeline. And that's been a really hard thing that we're still trying to figure out how to do our side of when people do a really, really good job as an SDR, deliver as much training, as much insight, as much connection, as many opportunities to follow deals down the sales cycle or get a benefits license to build that skill set, but it's not something that can be forced and can be just put on a timeline and automatically happen. And that's been hard, and I think that even as we've tried to build better expectations around how you can ladder up and keep making progress, that part is one that we definitely are trying to do a better job of supporting from a leadership perspective and setting expectations around on our side too.
Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'll add something really quickly. 2 things. So really the goal, my mission of being up here today is to kind of show you guys underneath the hood of kind of what makes you be successful for your career. The BDRs do not report to me, right? The BDRs report to a sales director. Namely, they report to marketing, right? So it's interesting that you can have people in either area. But what I want to talk about is like what it takes to be successful, right? We're talking about career paths or ladders. To be completely frank, we all work with startups, right? The goal of a startup isn't to grow, it's to accelerate, right? So it's constantly getting better. If you hit quota, that's the expectations your managers have for you for minimal performance. So if you want to be one of these people who are really controlling your career and moving up and kind of taking what should be, 18 months or 16 months and making it at that 12, you really got to be doing like 125% of quota. Like, because somebody else in your team's doing that. So really think about that. And only when you're outperforming your quota in a substantial way, only then should you lift up your head, look around, and figure out where you can really do networking in a meaningful way. I think that a lot of people come in like, all right, I'm pacing, I'm at 90% of quota or 95 or 100% of quota, and a bunch of colleagues who are behind me, right? Like maybe half the guys are behind me, half are ahead, I'm right in the center of the pack. If you really want to accelerate your career trajectory, you've got to do significant damage in terms of quota. My team knows that, right? We have people who are at 200% of quota, and they're consistent up there. Now, granted, maybe our quota is a little light. We're not going to talk about that. That's always a backroom conversation. But here's the deal: if your quota's light, smash it, right? If you talk to any enterprise account executive who joins a company, what they look for in sales is they go look for a place where the quota's a little off, right? Where the business is growing and they don't know exactly. They think they can come in and crash the quota that's in place. So if you're in the position, if your company's quota, you look at it and say, it's really not that hard. Do not do 125%. If you want to build your career, you need to be up to 200. Like, you need to really, really kill it because it's an opportunity and your company hasn't figured it out yet. So that's one thing that I think is pretty neat and really will open up doors for you to have those meaningful conversations. Otherwise, people are going to think you're an average performer or a little above average performer. And with a limited number of spots, you got to really stand out first on performance, and then you can do all the nice things. So that's like real talk. That I hope everybody here can really take, because you need to understand this, and as soon as you start embodying this, you can start moving and accelerating your career.
Yeah, I'd add just one thing in that dimension that might empower you or lift you up. On the flip side,
Yeah, sorry.
when you do that, you put incredible positive pressure on us as leaders to go help you build that path to the next place. Because if you're the one who's crushing it, and you're coming in with a great attitude every single day, and when you go and you work with account execs and you go and you work with sales managers, they come back and say, wow, I asked this person to like walk me through the pitch deck, and they must have practiced it 30 times with their mom on the phone because they just breezed through it and it sounded better than some of my people. You've now, by virtue of your outstanding performance, your outstanding attitude, and your absolute commitment to being proactive and succeeding, you've put us in a position where we have to get you to the next role, or else nobody else in the team is going to be able to believe that they've got a future for them. So while like the bad news is, yes, hitting quota and then waiting time doesn't necessarily equal career success and is going to make it harder. The good news is, if you're able to excel on all these dimensions, you make it virtually impossible for a good organization with the right set of practices to ignore you.
Yeah, my team knows this, right? We've got a guy on our team who is in San Francisco, and he's killing it. And we're trying to do everything we can to get him in a position. He's already interviewed for the position, and we're trying to find the right fit. But you better believe that the BDR director who's leading him and myself are out going to our SVP saying, no, this guy needs to get the role, because if he doesn't, the whole team's going to look and figure out what's going on, right? So they proactively put me in a position where if I'm going to do my job, I need to get this person promoted. And you all can do that by what we were saying up here. You just have to be very, make a strong effort to do this and be really smart about how you spend your time in your day.
Is it awful to sound like the mediocre salesperson right now after they just gave you all this like pump up and be the very best? Because like, let's be honest, like we have a room of people, are you all that 1%?
Not always.
I don't know, right? Let's hope that you're all here because you're all the way. But the point is, if you're not that one person who's absolutely crushing it every single month, time and time again, the other pieces that they were saying are vital, right? They are your lifeline, is networking, is having that attitude where people want to work with you. People learn from you. You're a valuable resource. Because in reality, you're not going to crush quota every single month, depending on how aggressive your quotas are, okay? So that's like, I think the big like, you know, mama bear reality being like, that's okay. No, but it's like there are places where you have, if you're not hitting quota, what are you doing to make sure that you are holding on to that job? You're an influencer on your team. You are helping with best practices. You are, if you're in a role where your manager is open to it, coaching people and helping them be better at their job if you are really damn good at your job, right? Yeah,
my second job at Percolate, where I was actually a mid-market seller, I'm not a good seller. I'm a much better educator than a seller. Somehow now I lead our sales strategy and sales effectiveness. Don't know how that actually happened, but actually I do. It's because of exactly what you're saying, right? Did I hit quota? No, I wasn't tracking. I didn't get on a PIP, but I was pretty darn close. In reality, I did all of those other things right. Like I had the right activity metrics, which is something we can control, like as a BDR, or even as a seller, we can control our activity. We can't control the outcome all the time. We can control our attitude, which is the other part of the triangle, and the final is the results. You have to have 2 out of 3, right? And I was able to really maximize the networking, the value, the team support, that when it came time to figure out what my future looked like and develop one more step, they came to me and asked me, say, hey, we have this problem. You've obviously been putting yourself in front of this problem. We want to create a role for you. And that was done because I did everything we're saying. Even though I wasn't hitting performance on quota, I was able to, because I crushed it as a BDR, I was able to buy myself a little bit of runway when I was in a bad spot. So absolutely to those points, those are also really important to having all sides of the triangle set up.
I might just add that like the one that probably gets talked about the least in all this, but might be more critical than you think, is the attitude side of it. Being somebody that others in the organization want on your team. And I think that that when you have that attitude right and you're struggling, people come but you keep it positive and you're taking it seriously and you're trying to get better, people come to help you and people respect it, observe it, and they don't hold it against you. And I think on the flip side, I think a lot of people believe that they can vent negative energy, bring it in, and honestly it's a startup, it bounces off the walls and comes straight back. And it's not actually even, the biggest problem for you isn't that it goes to your manager. The biggest problem is that it goes to the manager whose team you want to join. Yeah. And there's nothing that grosses a manager out more than the idea of bringing somebody who's negative onto their team, because the downside of that is that you affect your whole team when things go wrong, not just one individual. And that is, as Tony said, it's a hard job. In some sense, showing up every day and bringing a great attitude and being a positive team player, first, like chances are it's going to help your results over time. Second, it actually is a way to differentiate and in a really positive manner. I think it's more important than most people might think.
So we had a guy come speak to our team briefly about this, and kind of he runs a startup now. And one of the things that really stuck with me, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. Like, I have a really positive attitude when I wake up and when I'm walking to work and getting in for my day. Why is that? And he was saying he gets into this rhythm, right? He does a couple things every single morning that set his day up for success. And I really do that. Like, if I'm laying in bed, maybe I'm tired, maybe I don't want to get out of bed, but I think before I get up, all right, I don't really want to get out of bed, but what am I going to do to get myself there? Like, what do I need to do right now? And it's like, all right, I'm a damn good manager. I really like my team. I really like the company I work for. I'm going to get up and get shit done, right? And you just kind of tell yourself this, and whatever it is that mantra is, and then I make my bed, and I do 10 push-ups. And it's just something that I do, right? And I mean, I know you can tell I do 10 push-ups a day, but the point is, like, I have this little rhythm. And even if I'm running late, I make my bed. And it's just something that I know when I get home at the end of the day, my bed's gonna be made, I'm gonna be happier. And the attitude thing is huge, especially if you don't wanna be an AE and you're a motivator and you're an influencer and you wanna lead a team. That's what I look for in people that are gonna lead a team. It's like, do they inspire me to be a better leader? Do they push me and have me question, oh, wow, I need to learn that, right? Like, that's a good thing. So, I mean, the biggest thing is that pump up, like, motivation, whatever you need to do to get yourself in the mindset, and then limit your distractions during the day, right? Like, put your phone away. The amount of time, there's a stat, it takes, I mean, I think people say different numbers. It takes at least 3 minutes when you do something else and get distracted to get back on track of what you were doing. Do you know how many times you get distracted in a day? Like, that takes hours to get back on track. So try one day. Organize your day. Plan out what those hours look like. Yeah, it's not going to be perfect. You're going to get an email and get distracted and something's going to come in. But if you section out your day, the first thing you do, prospecting for an hour and a half. Right? Always.
Yeah, always.
Yeah. AEs still. The biggest thing sales directors say is my AEs don't prospect enough, right? So prospect when you first get in. If you get in early enough, give yourself a call block and get in early. Yeah. Give yourself a call block, whether or not your team is doing a focused power hour. If they're not, rile your team up and get them to do a power hour. It can do wonders. If they're good, they're awesome. If they're bad, they're demotivating. So get them to be good and be that person that wants to make them really good. And then do a little email block. Start that process over again. Or then, like, put 30 minutes in, like, go take a walk, right? And it's amazing if you, maybe tomorrow is the day, right? Like, come out of here inspired to have tomorrow be the day, plan it out, figure out what you want to do, and what does a really successful day look like to you? That's another thing. If you don't have a vision of what that looks like, it's really hard to get there. So, do you guys have anything else to end on? I do want to open it up for questions so we don't go...
I agree to all that.
Awesome.
Your,
all right.
your morning routine's way better. I try meditation and fall back asleep, so.
It's not everywhere, but I really try. Awesome. Let's get some questions. I hope you guys have a couple things. We'll take about 15 minutes and then, yeah. I go in order of hands too. I'm really, really particular about this. So yes.
Me?
Yes, you.
You mentioned, Nick, that on month 4 you expect some, like, a new SDR to hit quota. So, like, what do you expect them to accomplish in, like, 1, 2, or 3? Like, what percentage of quota to kind of see how they're tracking by month 4?
Yeah, it's month 2 is about a third, month 3 is 2/3, and the 4th month is full on. We're trying to reduce it. Sometimes it depends how the month falls, and we work back to it, but we just try to ramp up to it.
We're 30 days to quota for our team, and that's because they specialize, our BDRs. So you'll be inbound or you'll be outbound mid-market or outbound enterprise. And we train them on their specific task, their specific function, and they start cranking. So leading up to those 30 days, they have a graduated quota, just like Nick's saying, and we're 30 days, and pretty much everybody hits it. If not, they're there, 2 weeks after that mark.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we do a gradual ramp period after onboarding training. So it's exactly like Nick said. So by the 4th month, you're on a full quota. Yeah, yeah. Yes.
For your senior SDAs, when they're starting to make that transition to their next phase, what do you do for that next phase? Like, do you start pre-account executive training for them? Like, what's next?
So the recommendation for our team, and ours isn't as structured as theirs are, although we're putting it in place. The recommendation for our team is that when you're in that final phase, basically as you're creeping up on the 1-year mark, which is the end of the career, what we encourage people to do is do these informational interviews, right? So it's outside of sales, because they've already met the sales team. They're doing that earlier in their process. Outside of sales, go take somebody out to coffee, figure out, you lead the questions, you figure out what their needs are. We don't say specifically go and figure out what they're looking for in a new hire, but actually get out there and demonstrate your ability to have a conversation, to learn, to kind of begin your personal branding. So that's one of the things. Now, people who identify and raise their hand as being sellers, the goal, again, still trying to put this into full practice, but the goal is to make sales training available for them that'll bring them into their AE role. Because I'm not going to be able to give training on somebody who wants to be in marketing, our alliances team, to go to our customer success team, but I can give you training for the hire for sales. So they'll come through sales. Very often we'll encourage them to work with their account executive who they're paired with, but I make myself available when people come and ask. We don't do that much spoon feeding with our team, and what I found by that is that people who come to me, people who come to things like this, like they're gonna get time because I'm a limited resource. My team is a limited resource. So people who go out of the way, it's pretty much self-directed. You guys have a little bit more of a structured process, right?
Sort of. We try to align it to what it is they want to do next, right? So if it's moved to a team lead or management, we try to get them to coach, influence, and help others in the SDR team drive to their results independently. Yeah, if it's sales, it's follow deals down the cycle, practice there. We're trying to build out the other paths a little bit more, but like we have a benefits practice, and the answer there is to go to like just the weekly strategy meetings that the benefits consultants go through on how they're going to serve their client base's needs this week and come back. And one thing that we try to do is when people hit that phase, ask them continually, what did you learn? What did you take away from that? What is your next step to start building the ownership of it? And I would say that one indication that it's going well is that push of go do that becomes a pull of what else can I do, and here's what I learned, and what else would you suggest, and that pull starts to happen, because I think ultimately making a leap, it has to be pull versus push.
Yeah, totally.
And one little thing, I think a key thing throughout your time in sales development is if you're just setting up meetings and you are never sitting in those qualification calls and the discovery calls and the demos and actually seeing some of your sales all the way through. Like if you set up an awesome call, right, you're super proud of it, do you actually see it through? You're like, oh, whoa, they finally closed it, right? It's actually really helpful, and it'll help you first understand the entire sales process of your organization a lot better. But second, like give you the pride that you got when you got the qualification call, right? So like, that's a big thing, and I think, again, we get caught up in a lot of the little things that we do, but if you can follow a couple deals, and then also if there's any way to watch demos, we have a recording system where all of our demos are stored, and so an SDR at least like once a month at the very bare minimum should really block an hour and say, I'm gonna listen to a demo, and write your own, just for your own knowledge, like what are the strengths of this seller, what are the weaknesses of this seller, and you'll start to self-diagnose things that you're going to pay attention to. So that's a big thing there. Yeah.
Can you guys talk a little bit about like the self-awareness process of an SDR figuring out, so like we set up our SDR team to be like the farm assistant. So they're either going to be AEs, they're going to go to customer success, maybe they want to go to the management side. Can you talk about like how you help them figure that out from, let's say, 6 months to 12 months?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so basically, because I do the onboarding and because they have a director, I work with the BDR director, Rachel. She's outstanding for our team. She's working with them on the day-to-day. I'll interject myself with people on a one-off basis, and we'll go grab a coffee. So we have somebody who is, the somebody's me, who's out there trying to start these conversations. That's one of the main ways that we do it. And then we also encourage, as I was saying, those one-off, those meetings where they go and do the informational interviews. But to give somebody who's not necessarily their manager the responsibility or the, like, I mean, there's people in the organization who love this stuff. Like, I love it. It's now part of my job because I made it part of my job, and like, just, that's what the SVP of sales decided. Like, we worked that out because I love it so much. And there are other people in my company who also love it, and I'll help them. I'll say, this person wants to have a meeting. Can you give them some coaching? Just, hold up the mirror and help them figure it out for themselves. So it's very informal for us, although it's something that I consider the most important part of my job.
I was going to say, so the self-awareness piece specifically, like, as if I'm thinking, putting my SDR hat on, it's really like, first of all, like, don't get distracted about what's next when you first get there, right? Like, it's so easy. You're like, oh my God, there's just this thing, and there's this shiny object, right? Like, we're always looking for the next best thing. That's our generation. Of course you are. That is natural. Like, that's okay. But when it gets too distracting, you get worse at your job. So it becomes like this counterproductive thing. So I think that's a big thing that I've noticed. It's like, put your head down and do a really good job. And as a manager, the people that I see grinding and doing a really phenomenal job, I want to help. It's just my nature. There's people that give me the satisfaction to being proud to be their manager. I love helping them. I will absolutely take a one-on-one, even though I look like the busiest person in the world, if they want that time. So that's that kind of self-awareness piece. And then it's like, okay, I hit my activity metrics every day, no problem. I'm great at that. Okay, I'm starting to have some really good conversations with people. Like, I feel pretty confident in my skills. And so you kind of have those mental checks in your own head, and then you can start thinking more big picture and having that awareness to say, okay, now what is outside of my little world that I live in? And then that's where those networking opportunities, and like also coming to a senior leader and saying, like, maybe you don't know the structure of your entire company, right? Like, start there. Start talking to someone that's been around forever and like figure out what's the lay of the land of the company. And then figure out, I know nothing about that division. What do they do? Learn about that. Then you cross it off. And you're like, I don't want to do that. And to start moving your way throughout the organization to figure out where those places are that you may find a fit. And then if you can come to your manager when you're ready to talk about your career, managers are always open to talking about your careers. It's just whether they feel comfortable talking about it because you're ready or not. And I think that's hard as a manager, from a management perspective, of having career conversations a little too early when you really want that person focused on getting good at what they do. Does that help? Cool.
Yeah, I think one other challenge, I don't know if we have the answer yet because we're still trying to figure out many more paths for people and build those connections and start having them come give talks and lunch and learns and explain their world. But just a challenge I see that I don't exactly know how to address it, but is that people, I think it's typical to look at progression in a linear manner. And there was a really great New York Times article earlier this week that showed your likelihood to rise into a senior leadership position. And if you've had 4 to 5 different functional roles, you're about 2 or 3 times more likely than somebody who's only held one functional role. And what really it shows is that there's value in seeing the whole picture for almost anything you want to do well at a later point. But I don't think that that's as easy or clear or instantly gratifying to look at and think about. And I don't know if we really do a great job of that yet, but it's something that, like, I think is, I'd love it if we could do it better and help paint that picture and help show those success stories over time. So,
Yeah, Cassandra.
Hi. So you guys mentioned that you give an SDR like 14 to 16 months. How does that look different from an SDR at 4 months when they first hit quota? And what kind of traits or skills are you tracking throughout that
give it just quick, and then maybe one more question. I saw one more hand, and then we'll end it up. So, right, we have a similar, you have to hit quota 4 months, however long that takes you, you're gonna be an SDR1. We really expect you to hit your quota, right, to get promoted. So then you get promoted, but those skill sets and traits, I mean, really, at that point, I mean, I kind of spoke to that. I want to get to something new. Do any of you have pieces on that? I don't want to, so sorry, I can jump to one thing. I think at that point, it's like thinking outside the box of other places that you can learn, right? And like, I really look for people that are thinking and innovating around, like, again, like coming to this kind of thing, but like making this the research that you do around how to prospect better. And reading, I mean, I'm a total nerd about prospecting books if any of you want to learn about them. Fanatical Prospecting is my newest favorite. So definitely check that out. Yes, got some thumbs up. Really, really helpful for SDRs. So that's the biggest thing. I think like thinking outside the box and doing thought leadership things would be the big thing that'll also keep you interested, right? Like I've been doing this job for a long time, right? I could pick another career, but I'm always innovating. I'm not thinking I did this once, this is exactly how it's done. Think about new ways to innovate your practices because, and this is a good reminder as well, just in your day-to-day as an SDR, like don't try something 10 times and give up because you haven't given it enough of a shot, right? It's so easy at that 10th time, you're like, oh, this doesn't work. Like actually figure out if it's a good strategy. And try it out for a longer amount of time. So that's another piece.
Yeah, just one piece on that, and this is interesting. When I think about the careers of people who have been successful and not successful as a BDR, I think there's kind of a trajectory that I see commonly happening. Usually around the 4 month spot or somewhere around month 5, you kind of lift your head. Who here is at 4 or 5 months, or who here has made it past 4 or 5 months in the role? Okay, cool. So you probably experience this usually around like the 5 month mark. You kind of have this day where you get up and you're like, what the hell am I doing? Right? Like it's common, it happens, and it's this droop. It's this like downward stroke, and sometimes you can get out of it in a day. Most of the time, it takes about a week. Where you're saying, what am I doing here? Sometimes it spans over a weekend, and then you get out of your funk and you come back. And that happens for everybody almost around month like 4 or 5. And then who here has made it past month 9? Okay, so month 9 is when you start looking at all those LinkedIn invites from recruiters who are trying to find you VAEs. So here's what you need to know, okay? Like we all get it, we all know what's happening. Again, this is like very real talk about the position. So in month 9, they're gonna reach out to you and they're gonna promise you need an account executive or a new startup. We're a team of 1 and you're gonna be mid-market and you're gonna become an enterprise seller in no time. My word of caution is that if you talk to any of your colleagues who jumped the BDR ship to go to be that AE automatically, don't ask them right away, but when they're on their next job, ask them to tell you the truth about how it lands. Because it doesn't always work. In fact, there's a stat, I forget who did it, but if you look at my LinkedIn, it's like the thing I commented on 2 LinkedIns ago was a post. 65% of, I didn't write it, I just commented on it, or I think I liked it. Anyway, it's that BDRs who transition to be AEs, 65% of them do not hit their quota in their first 6 months. 65. So that means if there's three of us in the room, only one of us is going to hit the mark in 6 months. You don't always get 6 months to prove yourself in an organization, even in your own organization as an AE. So why does that matter? I mean, I talked to you earlier about the guy on my team who was ready to rock and I'm out there fighting for him. I shared with him that article and we speak very plainly. You should read that and understand that, right? If your manager is doing their job properly, we want you to get through as fast as possible. We also want to make sure that you're going to be set up for success. So keep that in mind, but also keep in mind that those feelings you had at 4 months and at 9 months as you're looking at those LinkedIn recruiters, it's natural. It happens in our organization, it probably happens in every organization because you all laughed, right? Know that what we're doing is a challenge and that it's universal. So it's not just you guys, it's not just a product of crummy management, it's just part of the gig. Anybody who's done it has experienced it, and it's not something that you can't overcome. But just keep that in mind. If you want to be successful, you have to expect these trapdoors, know where they're at, so that you can get out the other side. So, for everybody at 4 months, you're going to see that at 9. every day at 9, you can vouch for me.
Keep trucking. You can do it. Awesome. All right. Nick, any final words from you? Motivation, last word?
I
I don't want to put you on the spot. All right, well, we'll end it on that. So thank you guys so much for your participation. This was